Hey there, sword friends. As promised, I'm bringing to you a detailed review of this Shinogi Zukuri Mono Differentially Hardened offering from JQ Sword. Let's get at it. First off, guys, as I do pretty much with all my YouTube videos, or as I try to do, I try to give some shout outs to some fellow YouTubers out there in the sword community. And one particular YouTuber that I think everyone should know about, if anyone loves swords or tamashigiri or anything in terms of cutting with the katanas and all that. His name is Eric. His actual YouTube is Eric117. That's ERIK117. Honestly, if you love any tamashigiri, or you love cutting, or you love anyone playing with a katana, you have to check this guy out. I mean, his hands are just like elastic, and I don't mean that in a bad way. His hands and wrists are like elastic. I mean, he's incredibly fast. He's a great cutter. He's very entertaining to watch. He does amazing stuff in terms of tamashigiri. I think you should definitely check him out. So it's Eric117. Check out his stuff. Hopefully you subscribe to him. He has great content coming all the time. He's always got some fresh bamboo to cut, which I'm very envious about. And definitely check him out and give him a sub. He's a good guy and he has some great content. Check him out. Now on with the review. All right, guys, so we're going to go through this sword piece by piece. But first off, just to give you a little roundup with this sword, it's like I said, it's Shinogi Zukuri blade architecture. It's a T10 mono differentially hardened katana. It is a extra wide blade, which I'm going to get to the blade as we get into it. It's a heavy piece. It's definitely I mean, I'll give you some measurements just so you know what I'm talking about. It's a 30 inch blade from the habakkuk, so it's probably around 31 inches including the habakkuk. It's a mirror polish. It's razor sharp. It's got an Okasaki extended Kasaki. It's a longer, sharper edge, which makes this sword look really good. And it's got a 12-inch suka or handle. It's got a pretty long handle. And the actual sword with the saya, which I don't think anybody really cares that much, but with the saya, it's about 3 pounds, 3.75 pounds, and with the sword itself, I weighed it at about 3 pounds, 0.4 ounces. It's a pretty heavy girl. It's definitely heavy, so it's not anything, this type of structure, you don't want to get anything like this. So maybe if you're a practitioner and you do Lido and all that, it's going to be really heavy to kind of swing around and use all day long, so you definitely want something lighter. But if you want something that's a heavy cutter, that's going to get through hard targets and just give you great performance in terms of a heavy cutter, this is it. I don't think you can really do any crazy trick cuts with this like Eric would do, like I mentioned earlier, but it's definitely something that in terms of a power force type of cut, that's really why I got this sword. I wanted to really plow through tatami mats with ease, and I'm hoping that's what it does. The actual edge came razor sharp, so it's I didn't have any problem. I did strop it a little bit, which I'm going to make a video of that too. My belief in stropping of katana is definitely fortified, thanks to Eric Hussein. But it's definitely a great all-around sword, another great all-around sword from JQ. Good points and bad points. I'll try to tackle everything step by step and just give you an idea if this sword is for you. And if you agree or don't agree, again, this is my own opinion as far as my order and what I feel about the pieces and the makeup of this sword. But you can basically take that with a grain of salt or come up with your own opinion of what you think about it. And, you know, I'll take your comments and you let me know what your outlook on whatever I'm saying to you is. So let's get at it. All right, so we start from the bottom or the top, depending how you want to look at it. So we have the Kashira, the end cap. Now, this is a set that I chose from their site. As you can see from the pictures there, it's got a beautifully detailed flower pattern design. Now, this is the truth with all of the pieces that I chose so far this is the third sword I have from Jakku. They're all very detailed pieces. Now, honestly, people might look at these pieces and say, they're not handmade, but listen, again, we're gonna go back to the price of this sword, okay? This sword, prior to shipping, was a $260 sword. So you have to look at this review as a $260 sword. So at $260 to get these types of pieces, these types of castings rather, and with such high level of detail, I think it's pretty amazing that they can do that. I just feel like their hardware and the things that you have to choose from with them is actually very well done. I mean, if you have to take a look at this sword at quick glance, it's you would think these are handmade pieces. They're very, very good quality pieces, great quality castings, especially for the price that you're paying for this sword. You would want the pieces just basically not to be muddy and to be well done. And I think they're above average in terms of the price point, in terms of how the castings of these pieces are. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled with all of the Subas and Fuchikashira and everything that I chose. I think has incredible detail. Now, basically getting back to the Kashira, the one problem I have with the Kashira this is already the second sword that I see in this issue. Third sword doesn't have it, amazingly enough, which is great. But the problem I have with Kashira is the fact that it's not glued on. I mean, it's tied on pretty tight, but you see if I can get it in the picture here, focus. You can kind of just wiggle it very slightly from side to side. And the only problem with that it's not glued in as most production sword producers would do. You want your hands to be spread apart. Now you can, most of the time you would hold it and you would want to basically have your palm around the end cap. But the fact that this is such a long suka, you can probably not have to touch the end cap, but on occasion when your hand is on the wet end cap or the Kashira and you're swinging it around and all that, you can kind of feel it wiggle at the bottom of your palm, and that kind of gets annoying. So it's definitely something that I wish Jakku would definitely address. Now, thankfully enough, I have Jakku Sinoswords as an audience to this channel, and I would like for them to take this critique in terms of adding some epoxy to all their Kashiras. It's definitely just going to make it a more solid handle, and you won't have that play at the bottom of your palm when you're swinging it around and all that. The Suka itself, I chose a dark leather, or actually it's imitation leather, Ito wrap. The actual shape of the Suka is, it kind of just tapers down. It's a little thick here. It tapers down slightly in the middle and has a little bit of a curve. So honestly, it really does fit nice in the hand. It fits pretty much, your hand is able to go directly around the handle, the Suka, and you feel very comfortable holding it and gripping it. So I think that's one thing with them too. Their Sukas are very well done. They really are. I mean, the shape of them, the comfort of them in your hands they do a fantastic job with them. This is already the third sword that I think the Sukas are probably among the best that I've seen on custom production models. So I'm very happy with how this came out. Now, in terms of the Ito wrap itself, is another great trademark with Jakku swords. The actual Ito wrap is tight as hell. I mean, it just doesn't move. I mean, you have to put all of your force to try and get these things to move, and even then they just don't budge. Okay, they are very good at tying it up, keeping it fast and tight. I don't know if they're adding any epoxy along the bottom of it or anything like that. There's no smudge or glue or anything apparent with that, but they do a great job in tying up their Ito. The Samigawa is actually pretty good quality. It's got a little glimmer in the light because it's black. That's very well done as well. Not the best, don't know Emperor nodes there, but it's definitely very good quality Samigawa. I love the fact that the Makuki pegs, as I requested all the time, they're actually put in to the point where if you take the sword apart, you're not pulling up the Ito. I requested to put in the middle of the diamonds, and in which the diamonds themselves are all very even. For the most part, they're all pretty much the same same size. They start and terminate pretty much around the same angle and the same depth, height, and width as their neighbor. I mean, the diamonds are always very even. They do a great job all together with how they make their sukas, how they tie their ito, the shape of it, the comfort of it in your hands. I think that's just one great trademark of J.Crew, as I said. Then a little close-up shot here of the Manuki. Again, it's another flowered type of piece. It's a little bit more dull than the Fuchikashira, but for the most part, it fits the sword pretty well. It actually, actually being a little more dull blends into the handle a little bit better. So I think I have no complaints with how the Manuki looks. It's just not as detailed or as lustrous as matching up with the Fuchikashira and all that. But the Fuchi again has this flower pattern piece. It's kind of like a little patina that you can see as I turn it around a little bit. You can see a little patina. You have the same type of design on each side, which is nice. It's actually a little bit of a variation, but it's the same type of design on each side. You got a little patina on the corners here, which really blends in really well with the sword and all its pieces. But again, really great quality castings. Little lines in the petals. I mean, if you go in tight, you can see how beautiful the recasting is, or handmade pieces they are, whatever you want to call them. They just look great. However they made them, and however it came out. The transitions in between could always be a little bit better. J.Crew's transitions are pretty even or pretty consistent to the point where you have a little bit of a lip in between the ito and the Fuchi itself, but not to the point where it's ever going to bother you or it's ever going to hinder its performance or anything like that. But this could have been done a little bit better. Again, I'm comparing it to swords that are a lot more expensive, that you're paying for Citadel quality and all that. I've said this a million times before in other videos, but when you're paying for that type of quality, you would expect that transitions are perfect. Everything, the ito and everything lines up perfectly. You never have like a little bit of a lap or anything like that. You're not getting that 100% from J.Crew, but whatever they are offering you is still very well done, very tight, and it's not going to affect how you perform with the sword. So I have no complaints with this particular piece on this sword. Can't say about other swords, but with this particular piece, it looks like it's pretty well done, but could have been better. Getting into the Suba. Now this particular Suba, and this is my screw up, okay? I actually reviewed another Caboose laminated blade from J.Crew, and I picked this exact same bamboo tree Suba, and that's actually my mess up. I did a couple of changes to the order, and I ended up picking the same Suba on both swords. So, it is what it is. It's my fault, not their fault. Now, should they have maybe noticed it and said, "Oh, listen, you picked the same Suba"? Probably not. That's not their job. I guess they're just giving the order form and they're told what to put on. Maybe the customer likes the Suba, wants it on both swords, whatever the case is. Would I appreciate it a little bit more if they says, do you pick the same Suba on two swords? Did you want to change the Suba or whatever the case is? But they didn't. So the order went through like that. I noticed after a couple emails that I did make the change. It was my fault. But regardless of the fact, I do like the Suba and I don't mind it on both of my swords, because this actually fits really nicely on this sword too with the pieces, the other pieces that I picked. But I would have liked it different. But again, that's my mess up. So just make sure when you do order the sword that you really check and overcheck, especially if you're changing the order, that you pick the pieces that you wanted to go with to begin with. But on to the next thing. Saya is kind of like a red crackled saya. I am very impressed with the quality of their sayas. I mean, there's basically there's smooth lines throughout the entire saya. There's no ripples. Everything is incredibly smooth. I can tell this is a real multi-coated finish. No fingerprints show on this type of finish, which is great. I'm always a big fan of that. And it's what can I say? The shape, everything is great about the sayas. And this is again the third saya that I'm seeing from them, and they do a great job in making up the saya, and this particular one fits really, really well in the sword. The mic is here. That's the Sugeyo moving, but no movement. You don't feel any movement. This sword, the way they made it, opens up very easily with the thumb, and it slides out incredibly smooth. and closes up with a snap. So it fits incredibly well in here. No sword rattle. I'm very happy with how they fitted this saya with the sword and the baki and all that. This actually is a big improvement from even the Kobush style J-Crew that I reviewed before. You have bullhorn, a brown bullhorn on all of the pieces that you want bullhorn on. I mean, you have the Gorguchi, the Kojiri, and the Sageo, and the Sageo, the Kurigata, all in this really nice brown bullhorn. Now the transitions are pretty good. There's a little bit of paint overlap on the corners, but you know, nothing that really distresses me too much. It's very clean for the most part. But if you look at the top here, there is a little bit of a red overlap here, but not anything that, unless you inspect it very closely, that you're going to look at the sword and say, wow, that's really, really, really poorly done. What I did notice, though, here on the end, Kojiri, you have a little bit more paint overlap here. I think you could really see it in the picture. That could have been done a little bit better, but it is what it is. It's not anything that's that bad. What I did notice, though, with the Kojiri, when I was handling the sword, and only about after a couple of days that I had it, the actual bull piece here, the bullhorn piece, actually fell off. So they must not put enough epoxy, but very simple fix. I kind of just took it, put a little Gorilla Glue on it, and this thing is not moving. So you can expect these little adjustments or things like that from sword to sword. They may be done great. They may have enough epoxy they'll never come off, or they may come off very easily. But again, simple adjustment, no complaints. Put it on, it fit right into the transition. Nothing was broken or cracked. It's just probably they didn't add enough epoxy when they constructed the sword. Okay, here, if you can kind of see it, you have a nasty little scratch right here on the saya. It must have been when they handled it, or just from shipping it, or when they got it ready for shipping, it must have banged into something right before shipment. So if they notice it, they didn't notice it. I'm sure they're not going to, you know, kind of take it back and do it over again. Again, you know, for the price you're paying, I don't think it's going to warrant that for them. But could have they been a little bit more careful in shipping or not get that little chip? Yes, because on an otherwise beautiful saya, great paint lines, you know, great painted saya, that scratch kind of just is a little upsetting to me. So that's something that really should have been probably handled with a little bit more care in shipping this out. But it is really a beautiful, beautiful saya. I'm very happy with how it came out. Damn Shitodomes, okay? I know you've had experience with these Shitodomes kind of just coming loose and just kind of dangling in midair, and they're not glued into the Kurigata in place very well. It's annoying for the people who like having them on the Kurigata around their Sageo. It can get annoying when they're not glued in. I would definitely request that you tell them to basically glue them in or add some epoxy so they stay put when you untie the knot, and you keep the Sageo the way it needs to be in order to use it as a practitioner or someone, or just swinging the sword around, because you definitely don't want to keep the knot on there all the time, especially when you're using the sword and it's not for display. I would definitely recommend to request to have these glued on so they're not dangling side to side. If you don't care, you take them off anyway, then it really doesn't matter. So I digress. The actual Sageo itself is pretty good quality. It's, again, not shoelace material. I say it all the time. It's pretty thick. It does its job. It's not the best Japanese Sageo, but it's, I think it's on par with pretty much whatever you're getting from a lot of these productions companies that do a good job. Okay, it is pretty good. It's very, very tight. It came very tight in the knot. It was a nice presentation, as you can see in the pictures, and it's going to do its job. Its longevity is going to be there. I'm very happy with it. I like the color scheme, how it matches up with the saya itself and the rest of the sword. I have no problems with it whatsoever. It's great. All right, so one thing about J-Crew, excuse me, need my coffee. One thing about J-Crew that really impresses me sword after sword after sword. And again, I don't have 10, I don't have 50 swords of theirs, but I have a good solid 4 of them that I have my hands on. One thing that impresses me from the first sword right to this one here is the blade. Okay, this particular steel is a T10 mono construction, differentially hardened. The actual Hamon is called, and I know I'm going to screw up his name, the way it's pronounced. It's a Gunome Togare. I think it's called Gunome Togare. It's a specific Hamon that they have as an option on their website. I was very happy how it came out. It is really a beautiful, beautiful Hamon. The way it's pictured and the way it comes out on video, you can definitely see it. It's got a nice mirror polish, okay, in terms of the polish of the sword is mirror. It's very smooth. One thing with all of the Jakku swords, okay, is the fact that this mirror polish and how they make up these swords, there's no ripples, no lines, perfectly smooth, perfectly straight. Nice Zukuri, but not too much around the sword. It's a very traditional type of Shinogi Zukuri. You have the Okasaki, which had extended tip, which it looks great on this blade. But the great thing about how I chose to go with this blade, and I'll also credit this to Carl because he gave me the idea to on one of his swords. He actually went with going with the same width of the Motohaba, the same width of the blade from the habakkuk all the way down, all the way up rather, to the yokote. So you notice it's the same width from the start to the finish. So it makes it, there's a lot more steel on here and it makes it a very wide blade. Now, I chose to go with such a beefy steel blade because I wanted to get more of a heavy type of cutter. I'm not looking to do any crazy trick cuts with this. I wanted to have more of a heavy type of cutter. And the actual appearance and look of this blade is, I think, fantastic. They really did a great job, as they always do with all of their blades that they put out. I think that honestly, they're, again, another great strong point of Jakku is the fact that they take a lot of pride in making up their blades. They put a lot of work, a lot of attention to detail. I mean, they are honestly pretty much perfect in terms of the way I look at it. Their polishing skills are fantastic. The strength of their steel is great. The fact that you select the type of sharpness you want, and they honor that all the time. I selected razor sharp, and it definitely is razor sharp. I stropped it a little bit more, but just to bring it out to that really insane sharpness, that Eric sharpness, as we all call it. And I think it looks like a really great performer. Okasaki, which looks very defined, very well. The yokote has some nice trimmings there in terms of the geometric. It's actually the yokote is a geometric yokote, so it doesn't have the fine lines or carved lines, but you can definitely see where the yokote starts and ends. They did a really fantastic job with this. Nice thickness in the spine. It looks great, differentially hardened. I'm extremely thrilled with how this blade came out, how the Hamon looks in the light. It's an overall great appearance to the steel, and I was extremely happy with how it came out when I first saw it. And that's, again, really one of their big strong points in terms of Jakku Sinoswords. You have the habakkuk here, which is kind of like a two-tone or two-piece simulated type of habakkuk. Now, I learned from Matthew Jensen's channel that he had a video that he put out where he was talking about historical swords, and he was saying about how some of the older historical habakkuks were actually in two pieces. And I noticed that this is kind of like a simulated two-piece type of habakkuk where you have a little bit of silver and brass on the habakkuk itself to make it look like a two-piece type of habakkuk, which is obviously not two-piece, it's one piece. But I didn't know it was actually an historical presentation or historical representation of a two-piece habakkuk, but it actually, they did a nice job with these like little claw type of marks or whatever you want to call them. I polished this up with a little brass and silver cleaner to bring out the luster a little bit, but it's I think it's fantastic job in habakkuk. Fits really well, very tight. A little bit of space here in between the sword, not too much that's going to alarm me that much. I wish it was a little bit tighter in between, but for the most part, I think it looks great. And I gotta tell you, this sword is just freaking mirror polish is fantastic. It's reflecting the whole world right now on it. It's they did a great job with it. You don't see too much of the indentations of the line. A little bit, I think, when it glimmers in the light, you can see where the panel starts and ends for the most part. With the leather, it's a little less apparent than maybe with the cotton or the silk Ito wrap. But one thing that I'm actually gonna move forward with the Semigawa, I'm gonna actually choose to go with a full Semigawa wrap. Now, the perks of that is, I mean, they're enormous. I mean, in terms of how the actual handle is put together, there's two pieces of wood that kind of glued together, and that's what's holding it. Really, what's holding it is the adhesive they put on there and the actual Ito. And if it's tight and it's done well, it's going to do a good job. But having that extra Semigawa wrap all the way around is traditionally the way it's supposed to be done. And I would choose to go with a full Semigawa wrap. It's going to reinforce the handle. It's going to fill up the hand. It's going to fill it up in your hands. It's going to reinforce the strength of the handle, especially with the friction and the impact of hits and things like that. You feel more secure and it's going to be more solid in your hand. I would definitely recommend going with the full Semigawa wrap. And the fact that their prices are so good in terms of JQ, the increase in price to go with a full wrap is in increments of probably another $30, $40. I could be wrong. I really got to look that up, but it's not that much. And I would say it's definitely worth going with a full Semigawa wrap. I mean, it's got some nice balance. It balances at around 5.5 inches. I'm not going to do that now. I weighed it again. It's a little bit over a 3-pound sword, so it's got some heft to it. But I think that when you do swing it, you can feel the sword just wants to cut into something. You're gonna use the weight of the sword, I guess, to your advantage when you're doing cutting. I'm gonna try to keep it a little more fluid in my hands and maybe do some double cuts if I can, but I think it's not gonna look so good. So I think this sword is definitely a hefty sword. So if I compare this now to the sword that I basically went with, that I wanted to kind of simulate that type of wide blade structure, this is the Hanwei Practical XL. Okay, sorry for all the dust, and it's oiled up, so it's got a lot of dust and wood from the saya. The Hanwei Practical XL. It's got an even wider blade, but you notice that it's also the same width all the way down to the Yokote. So I wanted to kind of try to simulate somewhat of this type of blade structure and this heavy cutter. And this is a very heavy cutter. I mean, this kind of this goes through the tatami mats and heavy targets, pretty much like a hot knife through butter. And I want to try to simulate it with this sword, and I tried to emulate the same type of width like this Hanwei Practical XL, which is really a prolific, fantastic cutter. Here's my second offering for a JQ sword. Smooth as butter is the way it goes in. It binds a little bit here, but for the most part, I mean, it goes in incredibly smooth. Just snaps in. Holds itself in place very well. Very easily, you can use the thumb to kind of open it up. Goes in and out very easily. Snaps right in. Great job. This is probably one of the best fitting habakkuk to saya that I have thus far. I'm very impressed with how this fits. The fact that there's no rattle. I'm always a big fan of that. I don't know. I know rattling is kind of just a norm in a lot of production katana, but if it's not there, it's a lot better. You don't want, this thing rattling around when you're carrying it or you're putting it on your waist. If it's not there, it's definitely a lot better. So I always appreciate when I can get a katana that doesn't rattle. So that's definitely always a good thing. JQ Swords, Sinoswords consistently gives me a great product. Now, if you tune in to my next sword review, which should be coming shortly, I'm going to be reviewing a wakizashi from JQ. I want, and given that's going to be the third sword that I'm dealing with them, I'm going to attempt to kind of sum up my experience in the good points and the bad points. Bad points to the point where they're not really bad points, but things that they could improve, things that they can make better. Given that, I kind of rambled on enough. Thank you for watching, everybody. If you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. Again, shout out again to Eric117. Like I said in the beginning of the video, definitely subscribe to his channel. Take a look at his stuff. His stuff is great. As with all of the YouTubers that I follow and I'm a big fan of, Eric Hussein, Carl Ruger, Matthew Jensen, they all do a great job. We're all part of a really great sword community, and definitely check them out. And tune in, subscribe to this channel, please. Hit the bell icon, and you'll get an alert as far as the next video coming in for the Wakizashi, which is actually a really, really nice looking sword. I'm very happy with as well. So tune in, guys. Thanks for watching, and you guys have a great day. Peace out.